Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's date, December 18th, episode 106. And today's podcast, we're going to jump right into the opening topics. And what better opening topic to start with than the NBA Cup? The NBA Cup had their finals last night, and the Bucks came out with a 97-81 win, going way below the under, which is something that we obviously talked about in the podcast. Giannis Antetokounmpo was absolutely outstanding with 26, 19, and 10, winning MVP honors. The big thing about this game, folks, is number one, what I love is the defense. We saw this throughout the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Majority of games going under, with the fact that teams were prioritizing winning this cup. Not only did you get the big performance out of Giannis, obviously Dame with 5 threes, giving you 23 points. Brook Lopez nearly with a double-double with 13 points and 9 rebounds. Gary Trent Jr. stepping up with no Chris Middleton, giving 13 points off the bench, including threes. On the flip side, SGA struggled, 8 of 24 from the floor, 2 of 9 from 3 for 21 points. Jalen Williams, 6-18. Isaiah Hartenstein, something I've talked about, looking at him for a double-double, getting a double-double with 16 and 12. Folks, where was the game won? The game was won at the three-point line, and this is something that the NBA is going to have to start to study, is the volume, right? Listen, when a team outshoots a team from the three-point line by 36 points, 17 made threes to 5, right? That is enough to win a game. And that's what happened here. And really, you got to give credit to the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that when they fired Adrian Griffin last year, and I was honestly one of those people questioning the move, bringing in Doc Rivers, and a team that literally started the year, I do think 2-8, has really become one of the best teams, one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. So good job by the Milwaukee Bucks getting the NBA Cup championship, and obviously you've seen what has happened in regards to them in the futures market. If they moved, which is crazy, they're still sitting at 27-1. Folks, that's because of the fact that this style of format favors a guy like Doc Rivers who can get a win, whereas when you look at 7-game series, that's when Doc's teams tend to struggle in regards to matches. Remember, last year, underachieved, getting knocked out in the first round with the injuries. But shout out to Milwaukee Bucks winning the 2024-2025 NBA Cup. Moving on here to the All-Star game. There was a talk a couple of days ago by Adam Silver about the format. We've talked about the format with the 4 teams playing. Folks, it's not getting a good response. And frankly, it's a good attempt by Adam Silver to try and change the All-Star game format, because let's be honest, with players moving from conference to conference, there isn't that natural, hey, we know Larry Bird is going to be in the East. We know that Magic's going to be in the West. We know that Michael Jordan's going to be in the East. Isaiah Thomas was going to be in the East. David Robinson was going to be in the West. Elijah was going to be in the West. Ewing was going to be in the East. That's not the way the NBA works now. So Adam Silver's trying to find a way to spice it up. Kevin Durant was one of those vocal people that came out and absolutely trashed the new concept. It's very simple, folks. I've talked about this a lot on Sports Grid. You want to change it up? You want to make it competitive to where people are going to want to watch? USA versus the world. Simply put, you see how when we get into the Olympic Games, how competitive we are as Americans, as wanting to keep our, I don't want to call it our stranglehold, but our grip as being the leader in the NBA in regards to USA-born players, right? Even getting Joel Embiid from Cameroon to be part of the U.S. Olympic team. I'm telling you, if they really want to make this competitive, put some money behind it like the NBA Cup, but big money, get some more sponsorship. But more importantly, I really think going USA versus the world could be the way to kind of fix this problem when it comes to the competitiveness, particularly on the defensive end of the NBA All-Star game. Moving on, now we are in past December 15th, and trades will start to happen. We talked about Dennis Schroeder getting moved. It made me think about 5 players that could get moved. Folks, I think there's going to be a lot of movement this year in regards to superstar players getting moved. So I came up with a list of 5 players that will be interesting to see if they get moved. Let's start off with Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat, who's scoring about 20 points a game, shooting at about 55% from the floor, 78% from the foul line. Simply put, we saw what happened last year. Jimmy Butler is a guy that's been known to take games off or not play as much. Wanted a contract extension. Went to Pat Riley. Wanted him. Pat Riley said, you got to play. So it started to set up a time frame of maybe Jimmy Butler was going to get moved. Now I think it's going to happen. Here's the other thing that happens. Remember, folks, Jimmy Butler is an unrestricted free agent. That's going to affect the value that Pat Riley is going to be able to get in return. Remember, there is rumors about maybe a Jimmy Butler for Bradley Beal trade for Phoenix. Next up, when you look at guys that could be traded, Zach LaVine is someone that's also rumored to be traded. His contract is not great, 21.7 points per game, but the 43% from 3, 80% from the line makes Zach LaVine a good fit. Listen, Zach LaVine can absolutely score. Chicago's going to tear it down. We all know this. They're going nowhere. I know they're in the play-in hunt, but they're going to play the long game. Remember my phrase, there's nothing worse than being a middling franchise in the NBA. That's what Chicago is. Not good enough to compete, but not terrible enough to be in the lottery. This could be a way for them to do it. Look for Zach LaVine and possibly Nikolai Vucevic to get moved, maybe even also a Patrick Williams. Lonzo Ball can't get moved. He can't stay healthy. Next, when you look about New Orleans, 2 guys really quick. Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson. Folks, Brandon Ingram at 22.7 points per game, and then Zion Williamson obviously has been out scoring the same amount. Simply put, one will be moved. They got to blow it up. They're underachieved. They've all been hurt. So it's more than Zion. It's more than Brandon Ingram. Look at CJ McCollum. Look at Herb Jones. They're going to have to make moves here and get rid of some of these guys and start over. This was a team that I thought was going to be great, and it wasn't. Lastly, really quick, Jonas Valanciunas signed a 3-year deal to go to Washington. I think he's going to get moved. They got to want to play Alex Sarr at the 5. You draft the guy first. I think Valanciunas is going to be moved for a team in Washington. They should be changing their name to the Generals. They're so damn bad. Switching over to the college game, first on the men's side. Folks, the SEC is the best league in college basketball, okay? Simply put, nobody's playing better than Auburn right now. Tennessee is undefeated. You know, we can take a look at Florida with their win against North Carolina. Kentucky, what Mark Pope has done. Ole Miss with Chris Beard. This is the best league in college basketball, and it's not even close. Speaking of games, big game, women's basketball, Friday night, or Saturday night, I think it's Friday night, between UConn and USC, with 2 of the premier players, and Paige Beckers, and then obviously Juju Watkins. Look for UConn to get the win. I know they did not look good versus Notre Dame in their last matchup last week as Hannah Hidalgo dominated the game. Remember, this game is in stores. I do like the UConn Huskies. I love what Gino Auriemma has done. Remember, they are second favorite to win the national championship still behind South Carolina. Dawn Staley's team has done a great job. But a really sneaky good matchup in women's college basketball coming up this weekend between USC and UConn. It is a nationally televised game. I do believe it's on Fox. Coming up after the commercial break, we'll get into the awards tour. And when the awards tour, we'll look at the MVP market in the NBA, the Rookie of the Year market, and I'll give you a team that missed the playoffs and a team to make in the play-in tournament. This is Coach Young. We'll be back with the awards tour right after this. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast, and it's time for the award tour, where we always look at some kind of future markets in the NBA, college basketball, and when it gets down to the summer, we'll even look at the W. Now that we've come out of the NBA Cup, I think it's a good time for us to dive back in to the MVP market, where right now Nikola Jokic is the favorite at plus 105. Second is SGA at 2.5. Third is Giannis. It says 6-1. Giannis moved the dollar over the course of the day. He's now at 5-1. Luka Doncic, 7.5-1. And then there's a big drop off to Jason Tatum, who is at 18-1. He moved a little bit to 22-1. And then it's the big drop off. Kevin Durant, 100-1. Along with Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, 120-1. Along with Anthony Davis. So when you start looking at this, you got to look at this top four shelf, right? Joker, SGA, Giannis, Luka. Which one of those guys is the guy I really think is going to end up winning it? And to me, it's SGA, okay? I do believe in voter fatigue at some point. And with the Joker winning 3 of the last 4 MVPs, you would think that they would want someone else to win the award. Giannis has MVPs. So now you have to look at like SGA versus Luka, right? And when you look at the schedule and look at the NBA standings right now in the association, you do have the Oklahoma City Thunder at 20-5 with the best record in the Western Conference by 4 games, right? So when you look at that, can you look at SGA as being the MVP? Yes, absolutely. Why? Well, just look at the fact that they didn't have Isaiah Hartenstein. He's only played in 10 games out of 25, right? You have to look at the fact that they lost Chet Holmgren for only 10. They've only had him for 10 games. So if you look at the 4 and the 5, right? 2/5 of your starting lineup has played in less than half the games. That lends itself to the best player if they end up being the number 1 seed in the Western Conference as a way to get the MVP. And if you look at the stats across the board for SGA, getting at 30.3 points per game, second highest since 22-23. 51% from the floor. He shot 50% from the floor in every year since 2021, but 1. Listen, 34% from 3. He's never going to be a high-volume shooter from 3. 87% from the line. 6.3 assists, which are a career. 6.3 assists, which are a career high. 5.5 rebounds, tied for a career high. So when you look at this team and what's going on, it makes sense for him to get there. If there is a wild card, folks, it's going to be Brunson. The Knicks have to figure this out and get a little bit more consistent. They have some maddening losses. Okay, and they have a big game Thursday night when they head to Minnesota to take on their old teammate, Julius Randle, and we'll kind of talk about that in the next segment in the scouting report. But when you really think about it, Jalen Brunson at 100-1 seems like a bargain, folks. He's getting you 25 points per game. He's playing a little bit of a different role. So his 25 points a game is down by 3, right? But he's shooting it better this year than last year. He's shooting from 3 better this year than last year. And he's getting 1 more assist per game, right, than last year. And his turnovers are the same. If New York can find its way to be a top 3 seed, and they can figure out these maddening losses and show up the defense, Brunson may be in play here, and he could be a value right now at 120, I should say, to 1. Let's head over to the Rookie of the Year race. With the loss of Jared McCain to the torn meniscus, it's reopened everything up. Stephon Castle at plus 150. Yves Messi from New Orleans at 2.5-1. Dalton Connect 5-1. Zachary Ricochet 10-1. Zach Edey 15-1. Alex R 25-1 with Jalen Wells. Folks, I'm going Dalton Connect here at 5-1. Because if the Lakers are going to make a run and get there and try and compete, they need Dalton Connect to shoot the ball from 3. I think D'Angelo Russell is gone. Vincent is inconsistent. Hachimura can't stay healthy and can't bring it every single night. Austin Reeves up and down. If Dalton Knecht can have a great stretch of shooting the ball from three and be surrounded by guys like LeBron James who can punch the gap and kick out, and Anthony Davis who commands double teams in a low post or in a high post on drives, that is the play there. Dalton Knecht 5-1 to win Rookie of the Year. For a team that I think is going to miss the playoffs, I am going to say Indiana Pacers at plus 198. This team is not played well. They've had a rash of injuries. Right now, if you look at the standings, they are sitting in the Eastern Conference in the 8th spot, right? Chicago, Detroit are going to drop back. I told you Philadelphia is going to get in. So I think Philadelphia finds a way in. So if one of those teams drops off, I think that Philadelphia can make a beeline and get one of those spots. I trust Philadelphia more than I trust Indiana. So look at that in regard to Indiana not making the playoffs at plus 198. In regards to a team that make a play-in, it's Minnesota at plus 115. They are sitting there in the 7th spot. I don't know, especially if Jimmy Butler goes to Phoenix. I don't think any of those top 6 spots change. And then it's the spot of Minnesota, which has had a little bit of a rough patch at times with the maddening play of Julius Randle. Remember that whole argument stuff during the game where Rudy Gobert with the 3-second call? And Dante DiVincenzo has not been the player that he was in New York. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for a Minnesota Timberwolves team that, listen, number one, is in a really tough division, right? So I don't know how much they move up. And I do believe that their schedule is one of the 10 toughest schedules the rest of the way. Same thing with Indiana. So part of the reason why I looked at Indiana at plus 198 to miss the playoffs, right? Because I don't think they get through the playing game, and Minnesota to make it at plus 115 in the playoff in the play-in is because of the schedule. Coming up next, we'll get into the scouting report. While I'll break down 3 games in the NBA: Warriors, Grizzlies, Knicks, Timberwolves, Bucks, Cavs, and a big one in college basketball between Purdue and Auburn. This is the Betting Above the Rim podcast. We'll be back with a scouting report after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Let's get into our scouting report where I give you and I preview some of the best games coming up in the NBA and college basketball over the next few days. With the NBA not playing any games on Wednesday night, we're going to be able to get into a bunch of games coming up this weekend. And let's start off with the Warriors and the Grizzlies. Simply put, folks, this is a rivalry game. These two teams do not like each other. You think about the couple of years ago with the whoop that trick. Still think it's one of the great videos of all time, seeing Draymond doing a whoop that trick with the fans as my producer Matty George is laughing at me. But I still think it's funny, and I don't even like Draymond. When you look at this game, the lines are out for the game with the Grizzlies at 3.5-point favorites. You got to like the Grizzlies in this matchup. Golden State 2-8 straight up. Since in their last 10 games. The Grizzlies, when they're healthy, have played really good basketball. I think they're the 2 seed right now in the Western Conference. And listen, Golden State's going to have to get Dennis Schroeder up to speed. I like the Grizzlies minus 3.5 points, and I like Ja Morant to go over 22.5 points versus the Warriors. I know that Dennis Schroeder is a good defender, but Ja, when he sees this team, Ja smells blood. Memphis Grizzlies minus 3.5, Ja Morant over 22.5 points. Next matchup has the Knicks heading to Minnesota to take on the Timberwolves. And this will be an interesting contest here because we have Karl Anthony Towns going back to play Minnesota versus Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. I don't care what anybody says. Neither one of them wanted to get traded. Timberwolves -2 in this big matchup. And I think this is going to be a heavyweight fight. I know the Knicks are really great offensively. Minnesota's really good defensively, and the Knicks have turned up their defense a little bit. I think this game goes under 213.5. I think this is a low-scoring game, but the one guy I'm looking at to kind of go off, I'm going to look at, honestly, Karl Anthony Towns and his three-point prop, folks. Why? That pick and pop is absolutely dangerous, and I don't know how they're going to defend it. So when you look the player three markets right now, it's over 1.5 made threes and minus 196. It's a lot of juice you're laying with. It's minus 185 for 2+ made threes. So maybe the play is this. Karl Anthony Towns, 3+ made threes at plus 165. Rudy Gobert plays out drop coverage. He will not go out to that 3-point line. Cat burns him from 3. Next matchup we're going to look at in regards to the NBA is a big one on Friday night when the Milwaukee Bucks, fresh off their NBA Cup, take on Donovan Mitchell and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So this will be a really good matchup between these two teams. So where do you start to look at here? I'm going to look at Cleveland in this matchup to get the job done. Listen, Cleveland, 19-8 record against the spread. I think this is going to be, if you're looking for Milwaukee to maybe have a little bit of a down moment here for a second, kind of celebrate this NBA Cup, that first game back is going to be a little bit of a struggle here. So I look to Cleveland to go ahead and get the win and cover the spread in that matchup on Friday night at home. That's the key. Last game, college basketball, Purdue, Auburn. Folks, you got to wait what happens. Johnny Broome got hurt last night. We do not know his status as of right now. So this is going to be a wait and see game here. If Purdue goes against Auburn without Johnny Broome, maybe you look at Purdue plus the points. But I think, if anything, you may want to look at the under because either or, how Bruce Pearl will bring the defense. Let's get to our buzzer beater, folks, and it's a big one. And that's Caitlin Clark last week. We didn't get to it last time. Got named Athlete of the Year from Time Magazine. There's been a lot of talk about all the other players and all this other stuff, and the owner of the Washington Mystics trying to give credit to everyone. Folks, stop the nonsense. Simply put, this lady has put fans in the seats. This lady's got people watching the WNBA, and she's good for basketball. Let's stop the hate. Let's stop the race and embrace the fact what Caitlin Clark has brought to the WNBA. This has been your Betting Above the Rim podcast for December 18th. For all things sports gambling, download the Sports Grid app, pregame, in-game, postgame, props, predictions, and more. Very best from the sports gambling industry. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Betting Above the Rim podcast from my producer, Matty George. Vinny, who does a great job with the graphics. Remember, folks, it's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Good night.